Welcome to the Applied Blockchain Podcast, where blockchain technology and innovation are in the spotlight. My name is Adi Ben-Ari, and I'm the founder and CEO of Applied Blockchain, and I'll be your host as we dive into relaxed conversations with industry experts and thought leaders to get their views on what they're building, the Web3 ecosystem and its transformative impact on the modern world. Ron Bodkin, founder and CEO of ChainML. Welcome to the Applied Blockchain Podcast.
It's nice to be here, Adi. And ChainML is our labs company, but mostly we emphasize our protocol and product that we're building, Theoric, which as we'll talk about, is an AI agent protocol.
Okay, I mean that's the perfect segue. Give us a bit of background. Tell us a bit about yourself and the company and the product, how you got here, why you're doing this, what you're doing, why it's different. Let's go.
Yeah. So for me, I've been an entrepreneur a lot of my career and working in AI and machine learning for more than a decade, whether it was at QuantCast, that was a pioneer in applying AI in ad tech, built a multi-$100-million business with lookalikes to advertising, then started a company, Think Big Analytics, scaled it.
Hang on. What's lookalikes? What does that mean?
So lookalikes is making predictions to say, like, can you find people who look like the people that buy a product or service? So targeting people that are likely to be interested in an offer. That was a big improvement on scaling the reach of how many people you could effectively reach with an ad for something that might be interested, rather than what everyone else was doing at the time is just retargeting. If you went and looked at a product, chase those people relentlessly around the internet with an ad until they get exhausted, maybe they buy. So instead, trying to build models of the kind of people that are interested in your product and who to focus the ads on. So that was using machine learning models, a lot of real-time data. It was a combination of machine learning and very fast real-time signals was important. And that sort of got me excited about the potential of machine learning and AI. But I was also interested in scaling beyond ad tech and started Think Big Analytics to help enterprises. We did a lot of work with tech companies, things like analyzing support logs to make it easier to identify and resolve issues, working with NetApp and EMC, for example, among others. We scaled, and notably Western Digital, we even in manufacturing. So we scaled that, sold it to Teradata. I ended up as VP and General Manager of AI, focusing on integrating AI and machine learning technologies into the core database. I left to be part of the CTO office at Google Cloud, where I was responsible for applied AI. And then started an engineering team, grew it to 30 people to support the 500 researchers and 100 industry sponsors at the Vector Institute, which is Canada's largest AI research institute. For me, I have been convinced that AI is going to be the most transformative technology of our lifetimes. And very much focused on, like, how do we make sure it lands well in society? And, when I joined Google, I was optimistic because I felt like people there are very high integrity and high quality. But what I saw is that, the system of being part of a big monopoly did not produce good outcomes, even with good inputs. Similarly felt that the priorities of government funding, at least at the time for Vector Institute, were not towards sort of addressing good outcomes in a way, but more like keeping Canada competitive in the race with other countries, which just wasn't where I thought the priority, the need was. Instead, I got much more excited about Web3, had been involved advising the team at Consensus, Joe Lubin and his team, from early on as they were a startup. Watching Web3, a good friend of mine, Jeremy Miller, who was there on the leadership team, got me to, and in fact, that's how we met, Adi, was an introduction from Jeremy.
Jeremy connected us, and, I've known Consensus since the beginning, of course.
Yeah. So that was sort of early on. I was watching Web3, but felt like wasn't sure, that it was going to scale and be big. But then, some old colleagues of mine from Teradata, Nate Holiday and Scott Dykstra, started Space and Time and asked me to advise them, and seeing sort of how the space had grown and how there was an opportunity to build really interesting infrastructure. In their case, bringing data warehousing concepts, but with ZK proofs and robust decentralization for data analytics. And the obvious analogy was that there was a big opportunity to do that in the AI space. And at the same time, I felt not only was there an opportunity to do that in Web3, but also the ethos of really community-driven development, not extractive, built where it's open source, that's sustainable, and that the community can continue to maintain with a protocol that makes it sustainable. There was a big opportunity to do that that AI needed Web3 so that it didn't just end up as one more technology that was being exploited by billionaires to extract all the value, right? And we've sort of seen a preview of what goes wrong in social media where AI is used in a specific area, but a lot of downsides in how things have landed in social media with billionaires in control, and wanted to be part of a better future for AI. So I thought there was a big opportunity and got the other founders of the company together. We've been building in this space for over 2 years. We started building an infrastructure protocol for AI computation, and with the launch of ChatGPT, we started to see a lot more excitement at the intersection of AI and Web3, and saw that there was a real.
Can I ask you, is ChatGPT, I guess, from as an outsider, I guess as someone personally focused very much on Web3 and blockchain, I actually did some early work in machine learning for a telco company, but after that, I kind of wasn't heavily involved in it. And I kind of saw with machine learning, I could see what was going on and what was possible, and the type of early projects that you described as well, right? I guess mining data and being able to make predictions based on historical data and these kind of things. But the large language model, did you see that coming when it did?
I mean, people like when I was at Google, we and others were pretty fascinated by a precursor, GPT-3, right? When OpenAI published a paper that pointed out that you could prompt these large language models and they would do all kinds of tasks. It's like large language models are few shot learners. This idea that you could give them, just a little bit of examples and instruction and they would do a variety of things. That was sort of a big aha moment for a lot of us who were working in the field to be like, wow, like this was unexpected. Up until that point, every time you wanted to have an AI system do something, you trained one or more specialized models for a single task. You collected data to do one thing, right?
Yeah, there were specific data sets, I guess, right? Even though they may have been large, they were specific data sets belonging to certain companies or being used for certain purposes or whatever, I guess, right?
So you had to train models to do a specific thing and put them together. And so in that mode, there's just never enough talent to scale it, right? So, Google, Facebook, and the like, had put together really strong teams, and they would spend tens of millions of dollars a year to improve their ad revenue, to improve the stickiness of YouTube and newsfeed and so on. So it was working in those applications where you had $100 billion business tied to it. You could afford to invest, but it never really panned out when it required everyone in the economy to scale that kind of effort, right? It was too hard for the average retailer, the average manufacturer to get a team to put dozens of custom models together with custom data sets. And so, there was some adoption, but this was really the breakthrough as you were starting to get much more flexible general purpose AI. And in fact, what I see right now is we still see a lot of people when they talk about AI, they're still like parroting things they heard from 10 years ago when that was the nature that every task required a special model, required specialized training. And, what's exciting now is these large language models that are out there, which are really, that's itself a misnomer because they're multimodal, right? They handle image, video, even, increasingly, audio as well as language, but text. But the point, and great at writing code, notably. But the point is they're flexible and they can do a variety of things. And so you can give them prompts, you can give them dynamic information, you can give them access to tools. And so, what we think is happening is we're moving from generic chatbots that people try to chat with, ChatGPT and its competitors, Claude and so on, Gemini, and into a world where you build specialized agents that are really good at specific tasks, right? That can learn from someone. And that's a big part of our mission and vision at Theoric, is to create a protocol to allow anyone to create agents that are useful for them and others, to make it easy for them to communicate, to cooperate, to collaborate and achieve more, right? Just like people in teams build on the strengths of specialists to accomplish great things. We think more and more people will be creating useful agents in our network, and then they'll come together to solve hard problems.
Right. So what are these agents, and maybe give me some examples, like how do they sit relative to, I mean, are they in any way related to a large language model? Is it something that works alongside it? Is it a completely different thing? Like how does it, what is an agent?
Yeah, I mean, so an agent does use these underlying AI models, but it's designed to be able to increasingly handle tasks on its own, so more scope to accomplish things, has access to a variety of specialized knowledge, data, tools, right? So there's a variety of techniques, so, using one or more models along with access to data, tools like querying APIs, running code, doing searches, all of those types of things, right? And so, we've deployed agents for things like Space and Times Houston, chatbot that makes it easy to do queries, visualize, do analysis of index blockchain data, as well as understand how to do integration, as a developer, querying APIs and knowing how to do integration with their system to simplify things. Similarly, we've built agents for Filecoin Foundation to make it easy to understand how to interact with Filecoin and indeed tap into all kinds of interesting public interest data sets that are stored in their network. And, we're working with folks like, one of the crypto exchanges to create agents that other people can do a variety of analysis and get updates on what's going on with projects they care about and inform their thinking on investing, right? We think that there's going to be room for many people to create agents that sort of capture their knowledge and insight into how to analyze areas of their expertise. And so you can kind of have agents that amplify your knowledge and make it available to your fans, your audience more broadly, and that people who are wanting to get quick insights as they think about investment decisions can aggregate multiple agents like this and get, sort of the wisdom of different perspectives, right? So that's an example. We see similar around prediction markets and governance in Web3, but also, agents can be so useful for marketing, for analysis, for project management, of course, for engineering, right? And so, we see development of agents in all of these areas. Similarly, we're partnering with folks around DeFi and trading intent. So in addition to doing research, you can very easily then execute an agent that will simplify taking action on chain to do some trading, right? So these are all the kinds of things that we see as some of the early use cases where agents can greatly improve by having specialized knowledge and tools and access and, greatly simplify your life versus, trying to use a generic chat bot and working in one window, pasting something in and lots of iteration to try to coach it on what to do.
Do you see agents, I mean, is this kind of the convergence of AI and blockchain where you might have agents that then act on chain? So maybe, I don't know, investment activities or decisions or things like this?
Yeah, I mean, I think sort of core to Theoric is the ability to have payment, and there's agents can pay other agents. So in a collective, as you have a series of agents working together, they'll pay one another, and they can pay for access to data and for calling models for the intelligence of the agents, right? So that's core. And the natural step is also to have agents then further have the ability to do things like execute trades. There's a number of different approaches, like how do you give the right amount of resource, delegate resource access for agents, right? So people who want to have an agent trade on their behalf probably don't want to give their entire wallet, that it can trade everything. So this is where these kind of DeFi partnerships for intents, where to make it easy for a person to say, hey, I want to do this, now execute a trade comes in. Eventually, even lowering the bar so that anyone can build automation scripts to automate their strategies, which right now requires a fair bit of sophistication, but agents will soon make it possible for any retail trader to automate.
I mean, who I guess in the Theoric platform, who builds these agents? Can anyone build them? Are they sort of quite a sophisticated thing to build?
Yeah, I mean, it's open. It's of course designed so anyone can contribute. And, we are looking ahead this month in September to have our first test net where we'll have an SDK, and it's quite easy for people to register an agent. You can use any number of popular open source frameworks, whether it's LangChain or Llama Index or Crew AI or Council that we created, a bunch of ways to build agents and register them. We're looking ahead Next month to have a no code builder so that you don't even have to write code. You don't have to be a Python developer, but you can just use a point and click interface and contribute your knowledge to leverage like what's something that you know how to do well and teach an agent how to do it. So, and then further, it's easy to put together assemblies or collectives of these agents working together to solve ambitious problems, right? So the idea is we really want to unleash the creativity of the community. And then the other thing is, we're having incentivized testnet to give people rewards for trying out agents, for giving feedback, for creating agents. And we think that's important, right? So that there's if you're creating agents, you're going to get a lot of good feedback and learn and say, how do I course correct? How do I make the agents work better and better, right? So this is, I think, the power of community and the power of Web3 incentives. It's a lot easier for people to get started and start learning.
Yeah, you've kind of got an agent economy out of the box there with the Web3 infrastructure, I guess, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So Ron, with I guess in your imagination, like where does this all go? What's kind of the logical conclusions, and where could this go?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we're in this rapid phase of AI improvement that agents are going to get better and better at planning. We've already seen about 100 times improvement in the price performance of these state-of-the-art models, from GPT-4 that was so expensive and limited in scale, you could only build prototypes, but it showed the potential, to now, you've got the open models like Llama 3.1 and Gemma that are, at least 100 times cheaper, for the same kind of capacity. So we're only seeing improvements in their ability to use tools, to do planning, to access massive amounts of information, large context, and optimizations throughout, right? So what I think we're going to see is by the end of this decade, you're going to see a majority of today's knowledge work is done by AI agents, not people. So how far and how fast things go, it's really the question of like, how much do we incrementally improve AI and when do we hit diminishing returns? A lot of speculation on that as to how far we'll get. Obviously, there's folks out there that are betting that we're going to go, that we have line of sight to artificial general intelligence. The folks at OpenAI or, Ilya Sutskever's new SSI that just raised $1 billion, right? There's people betting that we're going to get super intelligent AI in the next few years. I sure hope not. It very much worries me if we got there. But, I think it's, along the way, getting the right kind of agents and the right kind of incentive structure. So we have specialized agents working together in a way that's pro-social, and that there's incentives for good behavior, not just for agents to do what people want, but also to prevent agents that enable bad actors to do bad things.
I mean,
right?
That's an interesting point. How do you, how do you control this stuff? I mean, how, I guess if I think about a large organization, there's a lot of problems with, like I said, this sort of concentration of power around this technology, right? And we can see how OpenAI itself evolved, right? It started off as this kind of open project, and then as soon as it needed a lot of funding, it kind of started to move down the track of a single very powerful venture funded entity, part owned by one of the biggest companies out there. Do you think, I mean, is it kind of a foregone conclusion that that's where a lot of this is going to end up and reside? Or I guess you're looking at Web3 and a more decentralized model and economy, but I guess with that come other risks as well, right? Which could be, you talked about good or bad actors. How do you know who you're dealing with as well?
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of points to that, right? One is there's centralization and decentralization risks, and I think people have to be honest and not argue one side or the other to the ignoring the one, right? So I think the folks at OpenAI and competitors like Anthropic have gone with the best way to deal with risks is to centralize power in good actors, right? And like, trust us, we'll be good and we'll move things forward in a good way, or we'll inspire a race to the top, as Anthropic says, right?
Don't do evil, as somebody said a long time ago.
Right. Well, I mean, exactly. It's certainly true that power corrupts, and, we should be very skeptical of, a billionaire controlling the future and saying, well, I'm going to be the benevolent dictator, right? In some sense. I think, you have to have options. I do think there's always going to be room for democratic control. I'm not an anarchist. I think there's some people like Balaji who seem to be, but I don't think that's the right strategy either. I think we also have to recognize, there are strengths and weaknesses in everything, and like government's not known for being quick to respond and doesn't have the ability typically to sort of play a central role. But I think there's still a role for in national security and safety testing and having a certain level of competence by government. But I also think the opportunity is ultimately how do you create something decentralized that's better governed, and that doesn't mean not governed, right? Like nobody wants to have a system where you have the ideal for cyber criminals and terrorists to hang out and create agents, and it's unstoppable, censorship resistant. First of all, I think the anarcho-libertarian views of early crypto folks believing that they could run such a system and the government wouldn't intervene have already been proven to be false. And second of all, like, why would anyone aspire to empower criminals and bad actors to create havoc, right? So, I think you have to have a governance system. But I think a big part of it is like, how do you have community feedback, and how do you detect and prevent bad behavior? And so how do you prevent fraudulent agents or spam agents or agents that enable bad behavior, right? I think there's going to be community feedback. There's going to be monitoring. Frankly, it's an area that we want to do more and more research and put, have interest from other participants in the Web3 AI ecosystem around how to do research to create a pro-social agent community that encourages good behavior and sort of naturally punishes and excludes, and whether by banning or simply by not recommending agents that are not compliant with standards. I think it's very much like the way we create incentives with laws in government so that people don't get away with cheating and crime, that we all follow the rules because it's the rational thing to do. So I think we should race ahead and build a race to the top in governing the way agents work. And if we do that right, we can make the even though the cost of training these models is currently just massive, and so I still think it's an uphill battle. I'm rooting for people like Sentient that are trying to create community incentives to train great models in competition with the closed models, but it's an uphill battle. When you're seeing billions of dollars required for competing in that game of training the best models. But if we can make it commoditized and make it so that the agent ecosystem is really community governed, and no one model is that important because you can swap them in and out. You're going to probably continue to see open models. I think Meta is going to continue to build open models, at least open weight, and that's helpful. As to how many other companies will spend $1 billion to create a model and then open it up so anyone can use it or most can use it, that's still an open question. I think we're seeing the XAIs, the Mistrals, others that have been opening models that cost tens of millions of dollars. It's not clear that they're going to continue to do it as the investment accelerates required.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of, I guess, with OpenAI itself, right? Is as the cost goes up.
Well, I think OpenAI, frankly, just went with, they were more worried about decentralization risk. They were worried about by open sourcing powerful models that would enable bad actors to do bad things. I believe them that was their motivation. Right. And it's easy to focus on decentralization risk, right? If you, open source models do have this characteristic that, they can be used to do all kinds of things, right? Like we don't yet have any technique that could really prevent them from undoing any blocking refusals, right? So like, if it knows about biology, then you can expect, if it's really good at that, it'll be great for creating bioweapons, right? If it knows about creating, terrorist attacks, it'll be great for guiding and, creating bombs and attacking, et cetera, right? So, there's certainly an argument that you don't want to make those capabilities fully available to everyone with no constraint. And while there's some research around like how do you somewhere sort of deeply prevent models like that from being able to do harmful things, it's at best, early stage. There's been a few papers that have come out in this vein, but it's far from established. And in fairness, even the centralized models themselves are not very good at, it's easy to jailbreak them. And so, it's easy to get them to do things you don't want. But anyway, I mean, there's a lot of risk in having super powerful models be completely open. But I think, certainly as you get to the agent ecosystem, having things be open and having, more community governance is a clear win. But also, as long as you have a variety of models available, that already greatly reduces the risk of centralization, of centralized control, of censorship. We don't want to see, say, OpenAI take their lead in models and consumer adoption and turn it into, a walled garden where everyone building agents has to build them in the OpenAI ecosystem or there's no adoption. So it's incredibly important in my mind that we create a vibrant, open ecosystem built on blockchain. And that's why we're working on what we're working on at Theoric.
Yeah. It's kind of like democracy itself, right? You kind of want an ongoing conversation. You want different opinions. You want the debate, and you want checks and balances.
Right? That's right.
So that you can.
It's important, right? And I think having the right participation by different stakeholders and the right governance is important. I think it's still how to really have effective multi-stakeholder DAO governance is still a work in progress in Web3. But it's an important area that we're excited to see continued progress, because I think it's really important for steering technologies, protocols like ours.
Yep. Well, I've got to tell you, it's one of the most interesting projects in the space. I'm very glad that Jeremy introduced us.
Yeah, it's been great working together.
and it's obviously early days in AI in general in terms of sort of the acceleration of what's happening now. So it'll be very interesting to see how this develops, what types of agents we see being developed out there and used, how the space evolves in general, and how Web3 and AI work together to create this kind of balance and incentives and economy, as you say. So it'll be good to catch up maybe in a few months or a few years, see where we're at, and then look back at this conversation. Well, a quick question that I asked all our guests: if you've got, have you got any content, maybe book, podcast, or something that you listen to or that you've read that you'd like to share with others?
I mean, I'd say one thing that, especially for people that are maybe not tracking AI as closely, is Dwarkesh Patel has a fantastic podcast. He is really insightful, thoughtful interviewer. He talks to a lot of the CEOs of important AI companies, gets some great insight. So, I think he's got a really interesting podcast. And if you aren't already listening to it, definitely one that I would recommend. I always listen to the episodes that he drops.
Yep. Okay, fantastic. Ron, really appreciate you coming on the show. All the best with the project.
Thank you, Addy.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Applied Blockchain podcast. Make sure you follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter for more updates. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And if you did, please let us know by leaving a review and clicking subscribe. Until next time.